with the emergence of the digital age, how has Morgan adapted to and tailored the new needs to the students of today?
Okay, so basically, through the past 23 years, it evolved very rapidly. So we've witnessed the change in terms of the skills required out of candidates, how the professional certification programs are changing within the curriculum itself to cater to this need, and as well the learning systems, how they're adapting to this. So in terms of the digital age, a lot has been changing in terms of the skill sets adapted by the providers, the content providers, the governing societies, the governing bodies for examination. So there's a focus on behavioral skills, scenario-based judgment skills, in terms of leadership,
so including more soft skills.
Definitely.
In addition to the trainings for the CPA,
so
CFA.
The training for professional certifications and diploma programs offers hands-on skills that focus on the relevant information needed on the job, unlike the traditional university degrees. That's why program providers are also integrating the soft skills and other behavioral skills into their curriculums to ensure that candidates are adapting with this change. Even from a digital marketing aspect, so we've been witnessing the appraisal for digital skills, and Morgan has partnered with the Digital Marketing Institute to offer digital marketing and digital selling education programs to cater to this need.
Okay. So it's interesting that she mentioned soft skills, Zeina, because you and I were talking a little bit about the SE Factory, and I know that there are 5,000 job openings in Lebanon in the digital sector annually. And, you know, according to research you've done, most graduates do not have what you've called the specialized technical skills that employees are looking for. So the SE Factory comes in and it helps them do that. But what did you find were the market needs, which helped?
So very briefly, SE Factory is a coding boot camp that was developed 2 years ago. Actually, as a result of a discussion I had here with Abdallah Jabbour in March 2015, when I was telling him that there seems to be a major need for coders in the country, but there's a lack of talent. And then he encouraged me to reach out to Fadi Bizri, who became co-founder of SE Factory with me, and that's where SE Factory started off. So thank you, ArabNet, for helping make this happen. So to go back to your question, we started looking into the needs of the market back in 2015, and we brought on board Bassem Dreidi, who's our technical director, and he actually has 10, 11, 12 years of industry-related experience. So he doesn't necessarily have an academic background coming in and offering a theoretical course or curriculum for SE Factory. He really understood the needs of the market. He understood that companies were looking for problem solvers. He made sure that the course itself was really focused on projects where students would spend 3 months, 10 hours a day, working on building 10, 11, 12, even up to 15 projects during that 3-month period, which is basically what companies were always looking for. We know that universities focus on a theoretical foundation of computer science and computer engineering. And so that's why there's that mismatch, there's that gap where students graduate and they don't actually have the practical knowledge. So through the coding bootcamp, we were able to make sure that once students graduate, it's as if they had work experience upon graduation. So they get into the employment without having to spend 3 months being onboarded. They spend maybe 2 weeks being onboarded. So we're able to save on costs for the companies as well and make sure that we're able to supply the right talent to those companies.
And it's been really interesting because so far, you know, of the graduating students, there's been a 90% employment success rate with the SE Factory. And to get back to what Muna was saying, you also have taken it upon yourself to help with the soft skills. We're talking presentation skills, interpersonal skills. So, you know, and then we'll get to you, Rawad, in a second, because I know you want to add to this. How important do you think that is today as we move into the digital age?
So, yeah, I forgot to mention that our curriculum isn't necessarily just technical, but it is 20% soft skills. So we know that companies are also looking for problem solvers, people who can communicate, people who can work together in teams, who can present themselves well, who can deliver on time, work well under pressure, solve conflicts between each other. This is a major part of working these days in the private sector. So we made sure that students are prepared for that kind of work environment. And what's also interesting is that the instructors aren't just instructors, they actually act as managers within the course. So they're overseeing the work of the students, they're making sure they deliver on time.
Are they mentors as well? They're mentoring?
Sorry?
They're mentoring
They're
as
mentoring,
well.
there's access to networks, and the soft skills component. We have Rabia Khadr, who's the trainer
who's
here.
a partner here
Yeah,
today.
he's our soft skills trainer as well. So we make sure that they're all prepared in terms of technical skills, soft skills, as well as networking, helping the students connect to companies whom they normally wouldn't be able to connect with on their own.
You know, it's interesting, we're talking about the young generation and how we're preparing it to meet the needs for what's to come. And I know, Rawad, you deal a lot with young talent because you work closely with startups to help them make efficient use of technology. And I know that at the UK Tech Hub, the goals have been to link them with local and international experts in different fields in order to get the startups up and running. But, you know, having dealt with young talent, having dealt with different startups, what do you think would make a startup work as opposed to not? What are the different tools and skills that you've seen?
First of all, thank you for having me part of this panel. I mean, that's the very difficult question to answer. There's no magic answer for this question. What we're really good at in general is to analyze stories, to analyze failures in some cases, to identify some characteristics, and also analyze successes in order to identify what made this story work or not. What we've noticed, I will talk on a global level, there's a trend that's happening, which is most failures are related to lack of product market fit. What does that mean? It means that we spend months developing a product, and then we launch it to discover that there was no market for it. Luckily, this type of problem is avoidable. It is avoidable by engaging as early as possible with customers. We're seeing a rise in the design thinking processes and workshops that are happening. We have, for example, integrated a human-centered design workshop in the new nucleus cycle, where we push the startups out of the door, literally out of the door from the very first day, to go do interviews with the humans in order to understand what are the needs of the people that they're trying to serve. And I think that's a very important angle of attack, because it allows us to avoid running into months of implementation before discovering that it's not working out. And also,
so you do market research first, and then
exactly,
and then you launch.
And also start with a very solid understanding of who your product should target. Identify who are the user profiles.
But does that necessarily mean that the startup will succeed?
It doesn't necessarily mean that. This is why I said that if we analyze what startup failures are saying, we will see that most of them are citing lack of product market fit as being one of the reasons of failures. And this is why we're trying to address that need as early as possible. And as I said, it's an avoidable problem. And even it's an avoidable problem if we started without this process in mind. So for example, if I have a product that's under implementation right now, I would take the fastest route to delivery in order to get the product out there and start getting feedback on it and learn from this feedback in order to enhance the offering.
Well, having had that experience, what do you think, I mentioned the word skills like 5 times in the introduction, but because this is really what this panel is about. What are the skills needed for the future? And this is really a question open to all 3 of you in terms of what you've seen.
Yeah.
Start with you, Rawad.
I think that there are 2 different categories of skills. There are the technology-oriented skill and the soft skill family. On the technological level, we see that there's a big revolution happening on different dimensions. There's the AI revolution that some see as a threat in terms of massive dislocation of jobs, and others see as an opportunity in terms of creating even further job opportunities. There is also the blockchain technology, augmented reality, virtual reality. Everything is happening at the same time, and to make things even more complicated, we are starting to mix those technologies together, and thus amplifying the complexity of the problem and creating even more pressure on the educational infrastructure and programs like ours. The way we try to address that on our side is by connecting the startups who join our program to a support system that involves an in-house core technology team with as diversified backgrounds as possible. And also we're trying to partner with experts on an international level, leveraging our UK presence, because we want people who have actually done these things and not only know them from an academic or theoretical perspective. And obviously we lack those advanced skills on a local and national level, and this is how we're trying to solve that problem. And also, to solve that problem, we're also leveraging the graduates of the SE Factory program. We saw that there is kind of a synergy between both offerings, and now the graduates of this program can join the nucleus, for example, to test the waters of entrepreneurship and check if there's a startup that kind of responds to their aspirations and join them later on by the end of the program.
It's interesting. Do you want to add something, Muna?
Yes, for instance, from the finance industry, finance and accounting industry, we see with the influx of information, there's a huge need for technology and computational thinking. And this is very important to adapt to the changing times. Candidates need to be able to disseminate information and be able to report precisely with the right decisions, or even with the CPA to protect the public interest. So this is one aspect of the skills required. There's a need also for adaptability and business acumen, design mindset like Rawad had mentioned. So we do witness all these skills required for the future.
It's interesting that he mentioned AI because, you know, now when we're talking everywhere, maybe in Dubai, not so much in Lebanon yet, the AI conversation has started, but kind of across the globe, especially in developed countries. A big myth is that with the arrival of artificial intelligence, human skills and humans are no longer going to be needed, and that couldn't be any further away from the truth. No, actually, we were talking about this, Rawad, and you can add to it, is that no, we just need to hone them and hone their talent differently.
Exactly. I totally agree with this. I think that AI will definitely replace some existing jobs, but at the same time, it will also create jobs that we don't really know of today.
Right.
And the thing with AI is that the nature of the jobs that we will give birth to are going to be more creative by nature. And they will require some follow-up from professional development entities that need to help professionals, not only students, to redefine their skills. And I think that there's a major effort at bigger organizations and corporations in order to ensure that there's sponsorship for uplifting the skills of employees in order to meet the challenges of the job ecosystem is facing. One example is that we need an HR function that's much more tolerant for failure, because as people try new things like AI, they will fail. They will definitely find it difficult at first. It will not be natural for them.
Here?
And I mean on any level, not necessarily only Lebanon, but it means that people
So promising, by the way.
It means that people need to experiment and prototype even at the level of their careers. And we need to have an HR function that doesn't only reward success and punishes failure, but also embraces failure as long as it allows the individual to grow and learn further.
It's, you know, I know Zeina and the UK Tech Hub are also reaching out to universities now. Not just universities, but there's also schools, and reaching out to them to basically say, all right, we need to start prepping the talent earlier now. We don't have to wait till they're actually graduating from college. We need to start earlier. So when you've reached out to universities, and I know you have, Zeina, if you want to tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. So we see our program as complementing the university curriculum. We thought about, you know, what if universities change their curriculum to adapt to the needs of the market, but that's not really their job. It's more theoretical. They prep them on a foundational level. Also, some universities, it takes a lot of time to change the curriculum. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved and whatnot. So we thought, let's just supplement it, but let's also identify champions within the universities in like chairpersons of computer science departments at LIU, at Lebanoniye, at AUL. We have key figures within the institutions that are really, really happy with our program, and they see the impact that it has on their graduates. And so it's a perfect partnership because we can't work with students who don't have that prior foundation. We work with students who have the foundation in computer science, but we take them to the next level, which is really focusing on the practical aspect. So it's more of a complementarity.
Rawad, please.
Yeah, I would like to add that universities, they are really good at teaching fundamentals. And we really need that. People need to understand that those fundamentals are important. Although students, they complain that as soon as they join the working environment, they don't see the connection directly between what they're working on and what they have been taught at the university. But the connection is there. So what we need to do is to bring their awareness and to kind of expose them to industry problems, even at academic level. And this can be done by building some form of partnership. I personally give lectures at USG, where I give kind of a practical course about software engineering. And I think that it helps kind of make this transition between the academic world and the professional one a smooth one. Also, this very solid fundamental background for students, it allows them to work on research projects. And at the UK Lebanon Tech Hub, we have a track record of supporting R&D projects at university level. We have, for example, supported the eDiamond project, which is a non-invasive glucose monitoring technology at AUB. We also have kind of supported the PremiSpot project at UZAC and the Phosphor Eye project at USG. And I think that those type also of support will allow university students to work on research projects that are not...
They already started working on them, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Okay.
And they are like midway through in some cases.
Go ahead, Mona, please.
To add on, so there is the gap between what universities and colleges are currently teaching candidates, and we are witnessing that gap. That's where professional development and training comes into play to support with the hands-on skills, the focused, the knowledge required to adapt to the working environment. Another thing to recap on Rawad's point is currently Morgan is partnering with universities to integrate professional development and training courses into their curriculums to fill that, to bridge that gap.
And you know, it's interesting because this is really, we're talking about expanding this knowledge and kind of spreading it out. And I know Zeina and the SE Factory are looking to double the students' number for applications and to expand beyond Beirut. I think Tripoli, you were saying?
Yeah, so something we're really excited about. So we've spent the last 2 years validating our model, and we know that it works. So what we want to do now is to at least double our output, maybe reach 120 students this year. And we don't want to just focus on Beirut because we know that there's an incredible supply of potential talent around the country. What SE Factory's vision is to create a Lebanon that's a tech hub for innovation and coding and developers. And what we see is that, look, so a lot of our reach reaches low tuition universities. These are graduates that graduate from universities that might not be the best, they might not be the most expensive, but our experience has been that once we train them, they can get to an incredible level. So there's untapped potential across the country in more marginalized areas where we could really harness their potential and build the talent and maybe create hubs of talent in Tripoli and in Saida and Bekaa. This is our ultimate vision, and what it could do is eventually help stimulate economic development and economic growth in those areas, help reverse brain drain, help keep students who graduate, fresh grads, from coming to Beirut, keep them in those cities, and help build the companies in those areas. This is a big vision for SE Factory in Lebanon, but we think there's a lot of potential for that because we know that with the right curriculum and with proper demand, we can really see that impact and those results.
I want to end it on this question, then I'll turn it to the audience, which I'm sure has a lot of questions for you guys. But you know, you mentioned turning Lebanon into a tech hub, and you mentioned the brain drain, which is really the big problem today. It's unemployment amongst the youth, whether it's Lebanon and the region, but if we're focusing here, it's also a lot of young students graduating with unemployment rates that are skyrocketing and feeling hopeless and helpless. And, you know, this goes out to all three of you. With your own experience and what you're doing, do you think it is possible to create this tech hub and get more jobs created in this country?
Mona, do you want to go ahead?
Rawad, Mona?
I can.
I mean, obviously, from what I heard was what Zeina was saying, if they didn't believe in it, they wouldn't be doing it, right?
It all started here.
Yeah, exactly. And what I like about the SE Factory program specifically is the fact that they accept people that have different backgrounds. You don't have to be simply a computer scientist to join the program. You can have a different background as long as you have interest in coding and you have the right mindset. I think the program tolerates those career pivots. And I think part of the unemployment can be covered by actually channeling part of the talent towards learning this new skill.
I actually want to mention that a lot of our students, when we talk to them, even before, during the info sessions, there's a lot of skepticism that really we can get a job after we go through this program. There's a lot of misinformation out there where students feel that really there are no jobs in the country, and so automatically they think of either leaving the country or working in jobs that aren't really related to their fields. Some of them end up working really menial jobs, not related to coding. And once we're able to get them into this kind of mindset that if you work hard and you build your skills in different aspects, you can find a job. And it's not even just in Lebanon. I mean, Lebanon could become the tech hub, but there's we have a statistic, I think in 2020 or 2022, there will be 1 million unfilled coding jobs in the US. And so why can't Lebanon become a place where we outsource this talent to companies, let's say in Dubai? And already we have at least a few of our graduates working remotely from Antwerp for a company based in Dubai. So that even if we reach a level of saturation in the Lebanese market alone, we can look beyond because it's coding and development after all. You don't have to be physically placed at the company.
And all four of us were talking about this before the panel, and we can close it on this, is that I think people are skeptical, students are skeptical because they think that, okay, we're getting these university degrees, and shouldn't they be enough to get a job? And today, it's not so much, it's not that easy, but it's not that the university degrees don't matter anymore. So let's end it on that. If you want to each say something, and then we...
It needs to be reinforced with additional professional development and training, but just to go back to a few points, with artificial intelligence, of course it's going to automate a lot of procedures within the organization, but it's also going to open doors for higher job roles for people to really invest in their skills and work on these jobs. Also, there's the change in the business model with the human cloud. So currently, it's 35% of the workforce are freelancers, but anticipating into 2030, it's going to become 75%. So, like Zeina was saying, we can make use of the talent locally for global purposes to support organizations worldwide.
So here's hoping for Lebanon. Great things to come. Can we turn it to the audience for questions? Not all at the same time, please.
There's a question.
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. My question is, what is the role of the public sector in this? Because as we were discussing here as the panel was going, that there's a huge gap between the demand and the supply on the market. We are still graduating every year 2,000 lawyers, where as we look around us now, we have lots of students majoring in new technologies and where we really need to fill those gaps. I know about Nawaya with Zeina, and she managed to play this role that the public sector should play, which is to match between the gaps on the market. So why don't we have the ministries of education with us, the labor ministry, etc.? What do you think about this?
Personally, I think that the government has a very big role to play in terms of leadership, in terms of giving this strategy that we all need to align our forces with in terms of delivering an infrastructure for education that is capable of meeting the demands of the future. I think this can be done, this type of leadership can be done by actually doing more and more analysis, publishing more reports about what are the nature of the jobs that are needed for the future, and staying aware and having their sensors deployed on a global level in order to get us those opportunities and include those and transform those into something that we can execute on with all the actors that are on the table, whether the universities or professional development entities and trainings and other skills-oriented programs.
To add to it, what we've witnessed from our operations in the UAE and Saudi Arabia with the investment in nationalization and Saudization, similar programs and funds need to be adopted locally to help advance this talent and ensure that people are really equipped to match this demand as well.
There's another question over there. If we can pass the mic, please.
Hi. I wanted to ask you, since this flow of people graduating and then falling into your hands, which is the startup world and all that, don't you think that there's some discipline or something to be learned when you shove a person from university into a startup where they lead everything and they have everything under their command? Don't you think this raises this person to be a sort of he got too much power too early, maybe? Maybe he needs to be in the workforce, learn how disciplined things happen for like 10, let's say 5 years, not 10, 15, before taking the helm at his own company, passing around orders, maybe?
Okay.
Like usually because the previous generation, my generation, I don't know how previous it was, but it wasn't like this.
Yes.
The path was you graduate, you go into a company, you know enough to start your own company, and then you take an attempt.
Yes.
Now they're just pop, they're at the boss from the very early. Don't you think this is bad or good? Something.
Yeah, I assume the question is for me. So I think there's a lot of what you're saying is true. There is a lot of misconceptions. We need to work on educating our students, because a lot of them, they have ideas. They want to become the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next Steve Jobs. And in some cases, we're hearing about dropouts, people dropping out of university just to follow the example of those individuals. And I think that we need to work a lot on educating those people. Programs like ours, what we try to do is we have a lot of senior guidance for technical developers. We try to explain to them that entrepreneurship is not necessarily equivalent to chaos. There is discipline, and it requires a lot more maturity than actually working in a different context. Obviously, for the people who have been trained and got all the discipline from bigger organization, we have to push them more towards innovation and to try to experiment and be a bit more, take more risks and not be crippled by processes. So every kind of profile has its own follow-up. But I agree with you that we need to provide this culture for people. If I were a developer today, I would definitely be happy, because there are a lot of opportunities, whether in startups or in bigger organizations. And I think that there's enough space for everyone to experiment, at least for a year or something, and then decide which direction to take on later.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for this panel. Thank you so much, and thank you to our panelists for this great talk.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.